The signals came from the third planet in a small yellow star system. They were weak, chaotic, and completely uninteresting to most of the galaxy. Radio waves carrying strange sounds and pictures bounced through space like lost children looking for home. Commander Thyleron was working the night shift at the Deep Space Monitoring Station when the signals first appeared on his screens. He was a Zephyrian, tall and strong like all his people, with crystal blue skin that glowed softly in the dark. His forearms moved quickly across the control panels as he tried to make sense of what he was seeing. The signals were coming from a planet called Earth. The creatures there called themselves humans. Thyleron laughed when he saw the first images. These humans were tiny, soft, and pink. They had only 2 arms and 2 legs. They needed special suits just to survive in space. Some of them could not even run for more than a few minutes without getting tired. "Look at this," Thyleron called to his partner, showing her the data on his screen. These creatures fight wars with metal sticks that shoot tiny pieces of metal. They ride around in wheeled boxes that burn dead plants for energy. And get this, they can only lift about twice their own body weight. His partner, a female Zephyrian named Velisa, moved closer to look. Her crystalline features reflected the light from the monitor. "Are you sure these are intelligent beings? They look more like the livestock we keep on Zephyr Prime." The 2 officers spent hours watching the human transmissions. They saw humans fighting each other over pieces of land, arguing about invisible lines drawn on maps and killing each other for different ideas about gods they had never seen. The humans appeared to be constantly angry about something. "Send this up to Intelligence Command," Velisa said finally. "But mark it as low priority. These creatures are barely beyond the Stone Age. If they ever figure out space travel, it will take them thousands of years." The report traveled up through the Zephyrian command structure, passed from one desk to another like a mildly interesting curiosity. Each officer who read it had the same reaction: amusement followed by dismissal. The galaxy was full of primitive species. Most of them never made it off their home planets. The few that did usually destroyed themselves within a few generations. Dr. Yilmoth was the hegemony's chief expert on primitive species. Her office was filled with artifacts and studies from dozens of worlds. When the Earth report reached her desk, she barely glanced at it before filing it under non-threats monitoring only. But something about the humans bothered her. She had studied many primitive species, and most of them spent their time trying to find food, avoid predators, or build simple shelters. The humans seemed to spend most of their time hurting each other. Their entire planet appeared to be in a constant state of war. "Probably a genetic defect," she told her assistant. "Some species develop overly aggressive tendencies that eventually lead to extinction. We will check on them again in a few hundred years." Months passed. The Zephyrian hegemony continued its slow expansion across the galaxy, bringing order and civilization to primitive worlds. They were patient and methodical. Their technology was advanced beyond anything most species could imagine. Their military had never lost a war. High Archon Vexthul ruled the hegemony from his palace on the capital world of Zephyr Prime. He was ancient even by Zephyrian standards, having lived for over 800 years. His crystal skin had turned deep blue with age, and his forearms moved with the careful precision of someone who had commanded fleets for centuries. The Earth report eventually reached his desk as part of a routine briefing on frontier worlds. He read it while eating his morning meal of processed minerals and liquid methane. The description of humans made him chuckle. 2 arms, 2 legs, and they fall over if they spin around too fast, he said to his aide. How did natural selection allow such clumsy creatures to develop intelligence? The report suggests they evolved from tree-dwelling creatures, my lord, the aide replied. Perhaps climbing made them slightly less helpless than they appear. Vexthul set down the report and looked out the window of his palace. Below him, the capital city of the hegemony stretched for hundreds of miles. Crystalline towers reached toward the sky, and floating vehicles moved in perfect order through the air. This was what civilization looked like. This was the result of millions of years of evolution and careful planning. The humans, by comparison, lived in crude boxes made of metal and stone. They poisoned their own air with smoke from burning chemicals. They had not even figured out how to work together as a single species. Half of their planet was usually fighting with the other half. File it under future expansion candidates, Vexthul told his aide. We will deal with them when we have time. It should take about a day to secure their surrender. But the hegemony was busy with more important conquests. The Andromedian system was putting up real resistance, using actual energy weapons and force fields. The crystalline beings of Xerion Prime had technology that was almost interesting. Dozens of other worlds required attention before the hegemony could bother with the primitive humans. Years passed. The human signals grew stronger and more complex, but nobody in the hegemony paid much attention. Primitive species often had brief periods of technological growth before destroying themselves. The humans would probably blow up their own planet before the hegemony got around to conquering it. Then something unexpected happened. The hegemony's expansion finally reached the outer edge of the human solar system. Long-range scouts detected some kind of space activity around the human world. Apparently, the little creatures had figured out how to leave their planet. Commander Thaleron, now promoted to fleet captain, was assigned to investigate. He took a small scout ship to the edge of the system and activated his sensors. What he found made him laugh out loud. The humans had built a space station. It was a crude thing made of metal tubes and spinning wheels. Tiny human figures in bulky white suits floated around outside, working on repairs with primitive tools. Their ships were barely more advanced than the rockets they had been using for decades. Control. This is Captain Thaleron, he reported. Back to base. The humans have achieved basic spaceflight. Repeat. Basic spaceflight. They are using chemical rockets and appear to be building some kind of orbital habitat. Recommend we proceed with standard conquest protocols. High Archon Vexthul received the report during his weekly War Council meeting. The other commanders were discussing serious threats. The energy beings of the Magellanic Clouds had developed new defensive technologies, and the machine intelligence of Proxima Centauri was proving difficult to negotiate with. The humans? Vexthul said when the Earth matter came up. Very well. Send the 47th Conquest Fleet. This should be finished within a week. Admiral Zektor was chosen to lead the mission. He was young for a Zephyrian commander, only 300 years old, but he had successfully conquered 12 worlds without losing a single ship. The human conquest would be his 13th victory. What kind of resistance should we expect, he asked the intelligence briefer. Minimal to none, came the reply. Chemical rockets, primitive explosives, and some kind of electromagnetic pulse, weapons that barely register on our sensors. Their largest ship appears to be about the size of our shuttlecraft. Zektor nodded. Standard intimidation protocol then. We jump into their system, demand surrender and wait for them to give up. Should be home by next week. The 47th Conquest Fleet assembled at the edge of human space. 3 massive dreadnoughts, each the size of a small moon, led 50 escort vessels in perfect formation. Their weapons could crack planets, their shields could stop stars. They had conquered species with technology 1,000 years more advanced than anything humans possessed. Admiral Zektor stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking out at the small blue and green planet ahead. It looked peaceful and quiet. He could see no orbital defenses, no weapon platforms, no signs that the humans were preparing for war. Open a channel to the planet, he ordered. Let us get this over with. The message went out across all human communication networks. It was simple and direct. This is Admiral Zektor of the Zephyrian hegemony. Your world is now under our protection. Surrender immediately and accept our rule, or face complete destruction. You have 1 rotation of your planet to decide. The Xiao Admiral expected an immediate response. Most primitive species sent surrender messages within minutes of seeing a hegemony fleet. The smart ones sometimes tried to negotiate. The really primitive ones just went silent and hoped the fleet would go away. The humans took 6 hours to reply. When the message came back, it was short and spoken by a calm human voice. This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Force. We have considered your offer and respectfully decline. If you want our world, you are welcome to try and take it. Good luck. Admiral Zektor stared at the communication screen for a long moment. Then he started laughing. These tiny, weak creatures were actually going to fight. It was like watching a mouse challenge a dragon. "Very well," he said to his bridge crew. "Prepare for conquest operations. Try not to damage the planet too much. We will need somewhere to put the survivors." Admiral Zektor expected the battle to last about an hour. His 3 dreadnoughts alone carried enough firepower to sterilize a continent. The escort ships were just there to clean up any survivors and secure the planet for occupation. The human defense fleet that came to meet them was almost insulting in its weakness. Zektor counted 37 ships total. Most of them looked like converted cargo haulers and mining vessels. A few appeared to be actual military ships, but they were so small that his sensors initially classified them as fighter craft. "Sir," his weapons officer reported, "the human vessels are moving to intercept us. Should we warn them again?" Zektor studied the tactical display. The human ships were arranging themselves in a loose formation between his fleet and their planet. They were actually planning to fight. It was almost sad. No warnings, he decided. They have made their choice. Target their largest vessels first. Make this quick and clean. The Zephyrian dreadnought Eternal Victory opened fire first. Its main plasma cannon could melt through a mountain in seconds. The beam reached across space and struck the lead human ship dead center. The human vessel exploded in a brilliant flash of light and debris. "One shot, one kill. Exactly as expected. Target the next vessel," Zektor ordered. But something was wrong. Instead of retreating in terror, the human ships accelerated toward his fleet. Their weapons began firing, primitive kinetic rounds and explosive missiles that bounced harmlessly off Zephyrian shields. "Sir," the tactical officer reported, confusion in his voice. "The human vessels are closing to point-blank range. This makes no strategic sense." Zektor watched the display with growing puzzlement. The humans were getting close enough that his ships could not use their main weapons without risking damage from debris. It was a stupid tactic that would only delay their destruction by a few minutes. Then the first human ship rammed his escort vessel Swiftblade. The impact sent shockwaves through both vessels. The human ship, a converted mining barge, crumpled like paper against the Zephyrian hull. But it had been carrying some kind of explosive cargo. The blast tore a hole in the escort ship's side, venting atmosphere and killing half the crew. "What just happened?" Zektor demanded. "The humans deliberately crashed into the Swiftblade, sir. They appear to have loaded their ship with explosives before the collision." Zektor felt the first stirring of unease. Civilized species did not use suicide tactics. It was wasteful and barbaric. But before he could process this information fully, 2 more human ships crashed into his escorts. The humans had turned their own vessels into weapons. They were using ramming attacks like primitive ocean vessels from ancient times. It was insane. It was wasteful. It was also working. "All ships maintain distance," Zektor ordered. "Use point defense systems to destroy incoming vessels before they can close." But the humans had thought of this too. They were not coming in straight lines like civilized attackers. Instead, they moved in wild, unpredictable patterns, using the debris from their own destroyed ships as cover. Some of them spun end over end while firing in all directions. Others flew in spirals that made targeting almost impossible. "Sir, these movement patterns make no sense," his tactical officer complained. "They are violating basic principles of space combat." "Because they do not know the principles," Zektor replied. "They are fighting by instinct instead of training. Adjust our targeting computers to compensate." But every time the Zephyrians adapted their tactics, the humans changed theirs. When the point defense systems learned to track spinning ships, the humans started flying through debris fields. When the Zephyrians cleared the debris, the humans began using some kind of electronic warfare that scrambled targeting sensors. Most disturbing of all, the humans seemed to be getting better at fighting as the battle continued. Their initial attacks had been clumsy and desperate, but each wave of human ships fought more effectively than the last. They were learning from their mistakes in real time. "How is this possible?" Zektor asked his intelligence officer. "Primitive species do not adapt this quickly." "Unknown, sir." Perhaps they are sharing tactical information between ships. Captain Lisa Rodriguez commanded the human destroyer Defiant. Her ship was one of the few actual military vessels in the Earth Defense Fleet, though it would barely qualify as a patrol boat by Zephyrian standards. She had been a naval officer before the aliens arrived, trained in submarine warfare and small unit tactics. The alien ships were huge and powerful, but they fought like they expected their enemies to stand still and take turns shooting. Rodriguez had spent her career fighting opponents who tried to hide and ambush her. She knew how to use an enemy's size against them. "All ships, this is Admiral Chen," came the voice over the radio. "New tactic. Use the asteroids in Sector 7 as cover, make them come to us." Rodriguez smiled grimly as she changed course. The aliens had better weapons and stronger ships, but they thought like people who had never been in a real fight. They expected war to be orderly and predictable. Human war was chaos. The Defiant slipped between two large asteroids and powered down all non-essential systems. Around her, dozens of other human ships did the same. They were hiding like submarines, waiting for the enemy to come close enough for their weaker weapons to be effective. Admiral Zektor watched his sensor displays with growing frustration. The human ships had scattered into the asteroid field and disappeared. His scanners could detect them if he got close enough, but the asteroids made long-range targeting impossible. "Sir, recommend we clear the asteroid field with plasma bombardment," his weapons officer suggested. "Negative. We need those asteroids for mining operations after we take the system. Send in the escort ships to flush them out." It was exactly what the humans had hoped for. As the Zephyrian escorts moved into the asteroid field, human ships emerged from hiding like deep-sea predators. They came from above and below, using the three-dimensional nature of space in ways that the Zephyrians, who thought of space combat like ocean battles, had not anticipated. The Defiant emerged from behind an asteroid directly beneath a Zephyrian escort. Rodriguez fired everything she had at point-blank range. Her missiles could not penetrate the alien shields, but the electromagnetic pulse from her warheads scrambled the escort sensors. While the Zephyrian ship was blind, two other human vessels attacked from different angles. Their weapons still could not break through the alien armor, but they did not need to. They had loaded their cargo holds with mining explosives. Both human ships rammed the escort simultaneously. The combined explosion tore the Zephyrian vessel in half. "This is impossible," Zektor muttered, watching his ships die one by one. "They are sacrificing two ships to destroy one of ours. The mathematics make no sense." But the humans were not thinking about mathematics. They were thinking about survival. Every human ship that died took Zephyrian vessels with it. Every Zephyrian ship destroyed meant fewer enemies to threaten Earth. The battle raged for 6 hours. The Zephyrians had superior weapons, stronger ships, and better shields. They should have won easily. But the humans kept doing things that no civilized species would do. They used their own destroyed ships as weapons, guiding burning hulks into Zephyrian vessels. They fired from inside asteroid fields where return fire might cause avalanches. Some human crews deliberately overloaded their reactors to create nuclear explosions when enemy ships got too close. Most shocking of all, the humans never retreated. Even when their ships were crippled and their crews were dying, they kept fighting. Zektor watched a human destroyer with half its hull blown away continue firing until its ammunition was gone, then ram his flagship's sensor array. The pilot of that ship had a choice: eject in an escape pod and live, or stay with his vessel and die in the collision. He chose to die. "These creatures are insane," Zektor's first officer said, watching the tactical display. "They fight like they want to die." "No," Zektor replied slowly, beginning to understand. "They fight like they are already dead, like they have nothing left to lose." When the battle finally ended, the Zephyrian fleet was victorious. But it was the most expensive victory in hegemony history. 6 escort ships were completely destroyed. Both remaining dreadnoughts were heavily damaged. Nearly 3,000 Zephyrian warriors were dead. The humans had lost their entire defense fleet. Not a single human ship survived. But they had made the Zephyrians pay for every mile of space. Admiral Zektor stood on his damaged bridge, looking down at the blue and green planet below. The humans had put up a better fight than species with technology, centuries more advanced. And this was supposed to be the easy part of the conquest. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we are receiving a transmission from the planet. Put it through." The voice that came through the speakers was calm and clear. It belonged to a human female named Admiral Chen, the one who had refused their surrender demand. "Admiral Zektor, this is Admiral Chen of Earth Defense Command. Congratulations on your victory. I hope you enjoyed our welcoming committee. That was just the warm-up. When you come down to our planet, you will find out why we have been fighting each other for thousands of years. We have gotten very good at it." The transmission ended. Zektor stared at the communication panel for a long moment. "Sir?" his first officer asked. "Should we begin the orbital bombardment?" Zektor thought about the battle Dr. Yilmoth had studied 47 different species during her career as the hegemony's chief xenopsychologist. She thought she understood how primitive minds worked. They were simple, predictable, and easy to control once you figured out what they feared most. The humans were different. After Admiral Zektor's troubling report from the space battle, High Archon Vexthul had ordered a complete psychological analysis of the human species. Dr. Yilmoth was given access to all the intercepted human transmissions, their historical records, and their cultural databases. What she found kept her awake for days. "This cannot be correct," she muttered, staring at her research screens in her laboratory deep within the hegemony capital. Around her, holographic displays showed human cities, human wars, and human entertainment. All of it was violent. All of it was disturbing. Dr. Yilmoth had 4 advanced degrees in alien psychology. She had written the standard textbook on primitive species behavior. She understood how evolution shaped the minds of intelligent creatures across the galaxy. Every sapient species in the known universe had evolved intelligence as a way to avoid conflict. The Zephyrians developed their crystal technology to hide from predators. The Andromedians learned to manipulate energy so they could escape dangerous situations. The Xerians became master engineers so they could build safe shelters. Intelligence, across 47 different species, served the same basic function. It helped creatures survive by avoiding danger. Humans had evolved intelligence to become better at creating danger. "Velisa," Dr. Yilmoth called to her research assistant. "Look at this data. Tell me what you see." Velisa approached the holographic display showing human evolutionary history. The images showed small, furry creatures climbing down from trees and walking across open grasslands. They looked helpless and weak. "They appear to be typical prey, animals," Velisa observed. "Small, soft, no natural weapons. How did they survive long enough to develop intelligence?" "That is what I thought too," Dr. Yilmoth replied. "But look closer. See these bone fragments? Tool marks on animal remains? Cave paintings showing hunting scenes?" Velisa studied the evidence more carefully. Slowly, her expression changed from confusion to horror. "They were predators," she whispered. "These small, weak creatures were hunting animals larger and stronger than themselves." "Not just hunting," Dr. Yilmoth corrected. "Persistence hunting. They would chase their prey for days across vast distances until the animal collapsed from exhaustion. Humans are the only known species that evolved intelligence specifically to become better killers. The research got worse the deeper they dug. Human history was an unbroken chain of warfare stretching back to their earliest records. They had fought with sticks and stones, then metal and fire, then chemicals and radiation. They had weaponized everything from disease to weather patterns. Most disturbing was their literature. While other species wrote about harmony, cooperation, and peace, humans wrote stories celebrating individual sacrifice for group survival. Their heroes were warriors who died in hopeless battles. Their greatest cultural works focused on conflict, struggle, and the nobility of fighting against impossible odds. "Look at this," Velisa said, pulling up a human entertainment program. "They watch recordings of other humans fighting each other for recreation. They call it sports. Dr. Yilmoth examined the data. Humans had dozens of different combat sports. Boxing, wrestling, martial arts, gladiatorial contests with weapons. They paid money to watch other humans hurt each other, and they cheered when the violence was particularly impressive. No other species does this, she said quietly. Conflict entertainment does not exist anywhere else in the galaxy. Most species find the concept physically disturbing, but the humans went beyond just watching violence. They participated in it voluntarily. Human records showed millions of individuals who engaged in dangerous activities purely for the excitement. They jumped out of aircraft, climbed impossible mountains, dove into deep water, and raced vehicles at deadly speeds. They called it fun. Dr. Yilmoth? Velisa asked, her voice shaking slightly. What kind of evolutionary pressure creates a species that enjoys danger? The answer, when Dr. Yilmoth found it, explained everything. Earth was a death world, not just dangerous, actively, aggressively hostile to life. The planet's weather included storms that could level cities. Its geology featured volcanoes that could darken the sky for years, and earthquakes that could split continents. Its biology included diseases that could kill millions and predators that hunted in coordinated packs. Most species evolved on worlds where survival meant avoiding the dangerous parts of their environment. Humans evolved on a world where every part of the environment was dangerous. They had learned to thrive in conditions that would kill most galactic species within hours. Temperature range, Dr. Yilmoth read from her notes. Humans can survive in environments ranging from frozen wasteland to burning desert. Atmospheric composition. They breathe a corrosive gas mixture that would poison most carbon-based life forms. Gravity, nearly twice galactic standard. The psychological profiles were even more disturbing. Humans had developed something called adrenaline addiction. They actually became physically dependent on the chemical their bodies produced during dangerous situations. Many humans actively sought out life-threatening experiences because they enjoyed the feeling. They are not just comfortable with violence, Dr. Yilmoth explained to her assistant. They are biochemically rewarded for it. Their brains release pleasure chemicals when they engage in combat or face mortal danger. Velisa was reading through human military manuals, her crystal skin turning pale with shock. Dr. Yilmoth, these tactical guides, they discuss something called acceptable losses. Humans plan military operations expecting that some of their own people will die, and they consider this normal. Show me. The manual was written in simple, direct language. It explained how human commanders should calculate the number of casualties they were willing to accept to achieve a military objective. The tone was matter-of-fact, as if discussing the weather. No other species thinks this way, Dr. Yilmoth said. The Andromedians will retreat if they lose even 1% of their forces. The Xerians consider any battle with casualties to be a strategic failure. Humans plan their wars around the assumption that their people will die. The final piece of evidence came from human entertainment databases. Dr. Yilmoth had accessed their movies, books, and games, expecting to find the peaceful fantasy worlds that most species used for recreation. Instead, she found warfare. Human entertainment was dominated by stories about conflict. Their heroes were soldiers. Their plots involved battles, and their most popular narratives focused on small groups of fighters defeating larger, more powerful enemies through determination and sacrifice. They practice war for fun, Velisa said, staring at a human video game that simulated planetary invasion. This is what they do to relax. Dr. Yilmoth compiled her report that night, working through what Zephyrians considered sleeping hours. Her findings were clear, detailed, and absolutely terrifying. Humans were not a primitive species. They were a weapon that evolution had spent millions of years perfecting. The next morning, she presented her findings to the High Council. The chamber was filled with the most powerful Zephyrians in the galaxy, military commanders, scientists, and political leaders who had guided their species through centuries of expansion. Honorable Council, Dr. Yilmoth began, I must revise our assessment of the human species. They are not Class 7 primitives. They are something we have never encountered before. She activated the holographic display and began her presentation. The evidence was overwhelming. Humans were persistent predators who had evolved on a world that actively tried to kill them. They were chemically addicted to violence. They planned their battles around acceptable casualties. They practiced warfare as entertainment. In summary, she concluded, humans are a species that has spent their entire evolutionary history fighting everything on their planet, including each other. They have turned conflict into an art form. They have weaponized their own biology, their environment, and their social structures. The council chamber was silent. High Archon Vex Thul sat in his throne, processing what he had heard. Finally, he spoke. Dr. Yilmoth, are you suggesting that these small, weak creatures are actually dangerous? My lord, I am suggesting that these creatures are the most dangerous species we have ever encountered. Their physical weakness is irrelevant. They fight with their minds, not their bodies, and their minds have been shaped by millions of years of constant warfare. Commander Thexara, leader of the hegemony ground forces, stood up. With respect, Doctor, your analysis may be correct, but it changes nothing. We have superior weapons, superior armor, and superior numbers. No amount of primitive cunning can overcome such advantages. Dr. Yilmoth turned to face him. Commander, have you read the human military manuals? I have glanced at them. Crude tactics for a crude species. Then you missed the important parts. Humans have a concept called asymmetric warfare. It means using your enemy's strengths against them. They have been perfecting these techniques for thousands of years. Commander Thexara had conquered 18 worlds for the Zephyrian hegemony. He understood how planetary invasions worked. You landed your forces near the enemy's major cities, destroyed their military installations, captured their leaders, and accepted their surrender. Most species gave up after the first demonstration of superior firepower. Earth would be his 19th conquest. The invasion fleet consisted of 50 massive transport ships carrying 1 million Zephyrian warriors. Each warrior stood 8 feet tall, weighed 600 pounds, and could tear through steel with their bare hands. They wore armor that could stop bullets and carried plasma weapons that could melt through concrete walls. Landing zones have been selected, reported his tactical officer as they approached Earth. Primary targets are New York, London, Moscow, Beijing, and Tokyo. Intelligence suggests these cities contain the human command structure. Thexara nodded as he studied the planet below. It looked peaceful from orbit. He could see the lights of human cities scattered across the dark side of the planet, twinkling like tiny stars. Soon those lights would be under hegemony control. Begin the assault. The first wave of transport ships descended through Earth's atmosphere like falling meteors. Thexara had chosen to land in New York, the largest human city. His intelligence report suggested that capturing it would demoralize the entire human species. As his transport touched down in what humans called Central Park, Thexara felt confident about the mission. The humans had lost their space fleet. They had no orbital weapons. Their ground forces used the same primitive kinetic weapons that had proven useless in space. This would be over quickly. The transport doors opened, and Thexara led his warriors out into the human city. The first thing he noticed was the smell. A mixture of chemicals, burning fuel, and organic decay that made his respiratory system work harder. The second thing he noticed was the silence. The streets were empty. No humans in sight. No signs of military resistance. No crowds of civilians waiting to surrender. Spread out in standard formation, Thexara ordered. Secure the immediate area and advance toward the population center. His warriors moved through the empty streets in perfect order, just as they had on 18 other worlds. Their crystalline armor gleamed in the afternoon sunlight. Their plasma weapons hummed with ready power. They were the finest military force in the galaxy. The first human attack came from above. Corporal Martinez crouched on the roof of a 40-story building, watching the alien invaders through his rifle scope. He had been a police sniper before the invasion, trained to make precise shots in urban environments. The aliens were big and scary, but they walked in predictable patterns like soldiers on parade. Martinez had modified his rifle with explosive rounds designed for taking down armored vehicles. He aimed carefully at the lead alien's head and squeezed the trigger. The bullet struck Thexara's helmet and exploded, sending cracks through his crystalline armor, but not penetrating completely. The impact staggered him and activated his suit's "Damage warnings, sniper!" he shouted, raising his plasma weapon toward the building where the shot had come from. But Martinez was already gone, moving through the building's stairwells like he had practiced 1,000 times. By the time the aliens fired, they were shooting at empty air. "Sir," reported one of Thexara's squad leaders, "we are taking fire from multiple positions. The humans appear to be using the buildings as cover." This was not how civilized species fought. When the hegemony invaded other worlds, the defending armies met them in open areas where superior technology could decide the battle quickly. The humans were hiding in their own cities, using their knowledge of the terrain against the invaders. More shots came from different buildings. Human snipers were positioned throughout the city, firing from windows and rooftops before disappearing into the maze of structures. Each shot targeted the weak points in Zephyrian armor, joints, sensors, and breathing apparatus. "Return fire on all sniper positions," Thexara ordered. His warriors began blasting the buildings with plasma weapons, melting through concrete and steel to eliminate the hidden humans. But every building they destroyed created more rubble for the humans to hide behind. Every attack revealed new sniper positions that had not been there before. The humans were not just hiding in the city. They were turning the city into a weapon. Sergeant O'Brien had been a demolitions expert in the Army Corps of Engineers. When the aliens invaded, he had volunteered for something the human commanders called urban restructuring. His job was to reshape the battlefield. As Zephyrian forces advanced down Broadway, O'Brien triggered carefully placed charges in the subway tunnels beneath their feet. The street collapsed, dropping a dozen alien warriors into the underground transit system. Before they could climb out, O'Brien sealed the tunnels with more explosives. "Control, this is O'Brien," he radioed to the human command center. "Package, delivered to Broadway Station. 12 packages wrapped and shipped." Throughout the city, similar operations were taking place. Humans had spent months preparing for the invasion, turning their own infrastructure into a trap. Bridges could be collapsed with remote charges. Buildings could be brought down to block streets. Subway tunnels could be flooded or filled with poisonous gas. The Zephyrians found themselves fighting not just human soldiers, but the city itself. Commander Thexara regrouped his forces in Times Square, trying to understand what was happening. His warriors were scattered throughout the city, fighting dozens of small engagements instead of one decisive battle. Human attacks came from sewers, building ventilation systems, and underground tunnels that did not appear on any map. "Status. Report," he demanded. "Sir, we have secured approximately 15% of the target area," his communications officer replied. "But the humans keep retaking positions we have already cleared. They are using tunnel systems to move troops behind our lines." "What about civilian casualties?" "Unknown, sir. We have not encountered any non-combatants. The humans appear to have evacuated their civilians, or armed them." That last part was the most troubling. On other worlds, the hegemony was careful to protect innocent civilians during conquest operations. It was part of their civilized approach to warfare. But every human they encountered was armed and dangerous, from elderly individuals who set booby traps to children who served as lookouts and messengers. The humans had militarized their entire population. Dr. Sarah Kim had been a pediatric surgeon before the invasion. Now she was running a field hospital in the subway system beneath Manhattan, treating wounded fighters and coordinating medical support for the resistance. "How many wounded?" she asked her nurse as another group of injured humans was brought in. 17 this hour," came the reply. "But none of them want to stay for recovery. They all want to get back to fighting." Dr. Kim looked around the makeshift hospital. Humans with bandaged wounds were cleaning weapons and planning their next attacks. A teenager with a broken arm was learning how to throw grenades left-handed. An elderly man with a bullet wound was teaching younger fighters how to make improvised explosives. This was not how civilized species behaved during wartime. Most species had clear divisions between combatants and non-combatants. between soldiers and civilians, between the military and medical personnel. Humans treated war as a community activity. "Doctor," called one of her patients, a construction worker named Mike who had lost 2 fingers to alien plasma fire. "I rigged those charges in the subway tunnel like you suggested. When those crystal bastards come through, they are going to get a real New York welcome." Dr. Kim nodded and continued treating patients. She had never fired a weapon in her life, but she was fighting this war just as hard as any soldier. She was keeping the fighters healthy so they could keep fighting. In human logic, that made her as much a warrior as anyone carrying a gun. Back on the surface, Commander Thexara was receiving reports from his other landing sites around the planet. The news was the same everywhere. Fierce resistance, unexpected tactics, and mounting casualties. In London, humans had flooded the underground transit system and were fighting from boats in the tunnels. In Moscow, they had weaponized the winter weather, using their superior cold tolerance to wage war in blizzards that Zephyrian life support systems could barely handle. In Beijing, they had turned the city's massive population into an intelligence network that tracked every alien movement. But it was the report from Tokyo that truly alarmed him. "Sir," his communications officer said, "Colonel Velthar is requesting immediate evacuation from the Tokyo sector." "Evacuation? Why?" "The humans, sir, they have weaponized their own deaths." The transmission from Tokyo showed scenes that violated every principle of civilized warfare. Human fighters were using suicide tactics not just against Zephyrian vehicles and equipment, but against Zephyrian personnel. They would approach alien positions with hidden explosives, detonate them at close range, and die in the blast along with their enemies. Most disturbing was their attitude about it. The humans who carried out these attacks were not desperate or terrified. They were calm, focused, and often smiling. They acted like dying for their cause was an honor instead of a tragedy. "This is impossible," Thexara said, watching the footage. "No species willingly sacrifices its members like this. It violates basic survival instincts." But the evidence was undeniable. High Archon Vexthul had ruled the Zephyrian hegemony for 800 years. In all that time, he had never received a report like the one sitting on his desk. "Commander Thexara requests permission to withdraw all ground forces from Earth," he read aloud to his war council. "Reason given: impossible combat conditions and unacceptable casualty rates." The council chamber fell silent. General Kethmos, the hegemony's supreme military commander, leaned forward in his seat. "Impossible combat conditions? Against a primitive species with chemical weapons and metal tools?" "That is what the report says," Vexthul replied grimly. "In 4 days of ground combat, we have lost over 400,000 warriors. The humans have turned their entire planet into a weapons system." The War Council reviewed the tactical reports from Earth. What they read challenged everything they understood about warfare, civilization, and intelligent behavior. In the frozen regions of Earth, humans had been using their knowledge of ice and snow to trap Zephyrian forces in deadly avalanches. In desert areas, they had poisoned water sources and used sandstorms to disable alien equipment. In jungle regions, they had recruited the local animal life as unwitting allies, using predators and venomous creatures as biological weapons. But it was the urban warfare that truly shocked the Zephyrian command staff. "They are fighting from inside their own infrastructure," General Kethmos said, reading a report from the London sector. "Sewage systems, electrical conduits, water pipes, building ventilation. They have turned their cities into 3-dimensional battlefields." Colonel Vexmira, who specialized in siege warfare, studied the tactical maps with growing alarm. "Sir, look at these tunnel systems. The humans have been expanding them during the invasion. They are digging new passages faster than we can map the existing ones." The humans had been busy during their brief respite between the space battle and the ground invasion. While the Zephyrians were planning their assault, human engineers had been connecting subway systems, sewer networks, and underground utility tunnels into a vast subterranean maze. Captain Chen Wei had been a mining engineer before the war. Now he was leading a team of workers who were literally reshaping the battlefield beneath the aliens' feet. How deep can we go? Asked his assistant, Maria Santos, who had been a subway maintenance supervisor. As deep as we need to, Chen replied, operating a massive boring machine that had been repurposed from a tunnel construction project. The deeper we go, the harder it is for them to follow us, and the more we can control where they go on the surface. The human strategy was simple, but effective. They would let the Zephyrians control the surface areas during the day, then emerge from underground at night to attack supply lines, communications equipment, and isolated patrols. By morning, they would disappear back into the tunnels, leaving behind destroyed equipment and confused enemies. The Zephyrians tried to follow them underground, but their 8-foot frames were too large for most human-sized passages. When they did manage to enter the tunnel systems, they found themselves fighting in conditions that favored the smaller, more agile humans. Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Jackson had been an urban warfare specialist before the invasion. Now she was commanding resistance operations in what used to be downtown Chicago. Her headquarters was located 60 feet underground in a converted subway station that connected to a network of tunnels stretching for miles in every direction. Status report, she called to her communications team. Squad 7 just hit an alien supply convoy on Lakeshore Drive, reported Sergeant Williams. They destroyed 6 vehicles and captured a weapons cache. Squad 12 is moving to intercept the alien reinforcements. Jackson studied the tactical map projected on the tunnel wall. Red markers showed Zephyrian positions, blue markers showed human units, and green lines showed the underground passages connecting them. The map looked like a spider web wrapped around the alien forces. What about civilian casualties? She asked. Minimal. Most civilians were evacuated through the tunnel networks before the aliens arrived. The ones who stayed behind are helping with intelligence gathering and supply runs. This was another factor that confused the Zephyrian invaders. On other worlds, civilian populations were either evacuated to safety or remained in place to be protected. Human civilians were actively participating in the war effort. 12-year-old Tommy Chen had been a Boy Scout before the invasion. His troop had been practicing wilderness survival skills when the aliens landed. Now those skills were being used to support military operations. Tommy's job was simple: move through the city's ventilation systems and report alien positions to the resistance fighters. He was small enough to fit through air ducts that adults could not use, and he could move silently through the building infrastructure. Control. This is Scout 7, he whispered into his radio, crawling through an air duct above a Zephyrian command post. I count 20 aliens in the lobby of the Marriott Hotel. They have some kind of big communication device set up near the front desk. The response came immediately. Copy, Scout 7. Stay clear of the area for the next 10 minutes. Tommy made his way to a safe distance and waited. Exactly 10 minutes later, a massive explosion shook the building. When the smoke cleared, the Zephyrian command post was gone, destroyed by explosives that human engineers had planted in the building's foundation weeks earlier. The aliens were learning that every human structure was potentially hostile. Office buildings contained hidden weapons caches. Parking garages had been converted into vehicle traps. Even playgrounds and parks had been rigged with detection sensors and communication equipment. Commander Thexara received casualty reports every hour, and each one was worse than the last. His forces were being picked apart by an enemy they could rarely see and almost never catch. The humans fought like ghosts, appearing just long enough to strike, and then vanishing back into their tunnel networks. Sir, his intelligence officer reported, we have identified the human command structure. They appear to be operating from a facility called NORAD, built inside a mountain in Colorado. Thexara studied the location data. The human military headquarters was buried under thousands of tons of rock, accessible only through heavily defended tunnels. It would take days to blast through to it, and the humans would probably destroy it before allowing it to be captured. What about their political leaders? Scattered to various underground facilities around the planet, the humans seemed to have prepared for this type of invasion years in advance. That was when Thexara realized the truth about human preparations. The empty cities, the tunnel networks, the coordinated resistance. None of it had been improvised after the hegemony's arrival. The humans had been planning for this war before they even knew aliens existed. "Sir," his communications officer announced, "we are receiving a transmission from the human command." The voice that came through the speakers was calm and professional. It belonged to Admiral Chen, the human who had refused their original surrender demand. "Commander Thexara, this is Admiral Sarah Chen. I hope you are enjoying your visit to Earth. As you can see, we take hospitality very seriously here. We have prepared special accommodations for all your warriors." The transmission paused, and Thexara could hear explosions in the background. "You are probably wondering why we are fighting so hard for a primitive world with limited resources," Admiral Chen continued. "The answer is simple. This is our home, and humans will do anything to protect their homes. If you would like to discuss terms for your withdrawal," the voice continued, "we are prepared to negotiate. We will allow your forces to leave Earth, unharmed in exchange for a formal treaty recognizing our independence." Thexara felt anger surge through his crystalline body. A primitive species was offering him terms? As if they were equals? "Send a reply," he ordered. "Tell them we do not negotiate with primitives. Tell them we will continue this invasion until every human on the planet is dead or captured." The response came back within minutes. "Understood, Commander. In that case, welcome to Phase 2. Thexara was about to ask what Phase 2 meant when the lights went out. All across the planet, human sabotage teams triggered coordinated attacks on power grids, communication networks, and supply lines. The Zephyrian forces found themselves cut off from each other, fighting in darkness with failing equipment and no way to call for support. The humans had been patient. They had allowed the aliens to spread across the planet and establish positions in major cities. Then, when the Zephyrian forces were most vulnerable, they had struck simultaneously at every critical system. In the tunnels beneath New York, Captain Chen Wei was leading his engineering team toward a new objective. They had been digging for days, creating a passage that would take them directly under the largest Zephyrian base in the city. "How much explosive?" asked Maria Santos, calculating the structural requirements. "All of it," Chen replied. "We are going to collapse 6 city blocks. Everything above us comes down. Sir, that will destroy most of Midtown Manhattan. Better our buildings than our planet." The explosion, when it came, was visible from orbit, 6 square blocks of New York City. 6 months after the failed invasion of Earth, High Archon Vexthal was dealing with the worst crisis in hegemony history. The defeat had shaken the foundation of their empire. 17 worlds had declared independence. 3 client species had stopped paying tribute. And now there were reports of strange ships appearing throughout hegemony space. Human ships. "How is this possible?" Vexthal demanded, studying the intelligence reports. "We destroyed their entire space fleet. We monitored their planet. They should not have the technology to build faster-than-light vessels." Dr. Yilmoth, who had correctly predicted the disaster on Earth, stood before the High Council with her latest analysis. Her expression was grim. "My lord, the humans have been busy. They salvaged our destroyed ships from the space battle and reverse-engineered our technology. But they did not simply copy our designs. They improved them." The holographic display showed images captured by long-range sensors, human vessels that looked like nothing the galaxy had ever seen before. They appeared to be hybrid designs, Zephyrian technology fused with human engineering in ways that should not have been possible. "Improve them how?" asked General Kethmos. "They made them faster, more efficient and more powerful," Dr. Yilmoth replied. "Human engineers approached our technology like they approach everything else, as a problem to be solved through innovation and adaptation." The reports were detailed and disturbing. Human ships were appearing near hegemony worlds, conducting what appeared to be reconnaissance missions. They did not attack, but they scanned everything: military installations, trade routes, and planetary defenses. They were gathering intelligence. "What do they want?" Vexthal asked. "Unknown, my lord. But based on their psychological profile, I suspect they are planning something." Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Retribution, humanity's first. interstellar warship. The vessel was a miracle of engineering, human creativity combined with alien technology to create something neither species could have built alone. Around her, the bridge crew monitored systems that had been impossible just months earlier. Faster-than-light engines based on Zephyrian designs but improved with human modifications. Weapons systems that combined alien energy technology with human targeting computers. Shields that adapted to incoming attacks using human-developed artificial intelligence. Status report, Chen requested. All systems operational, Captain, replied her engineering officer, Commander Rodriguez. The hybrid power system is performing at 115% of design specifications. How is that possible? The human modifications, ma'am. We redesigned the energy flow patterns using techniques from our electrical grid systems. The aliens built their technology for reliability. We built ours for efficiency. Chen nodded and turned to her navigation officer. Set course for Zephyr Prime. Time to have a conversation with their leadership. The journey to the hegemony capital took 3 days, faster than any Zephyrian ship could make the same trip. When the Retribution emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Zephyr system, it immediately attracted attention. Admiral Zektor, still commanding the home defense fleet after his failure at Earth, watched the human vessel approach, with a mixture of curiosity and dread. The ship was small compared to his dreadnoughts, but its design radiated an efficiency that made him uncomfortable. Sir, his sensor officer reported, the human vessel is requesting permission to approach. Zephyr Prime for diplomatic talks. Diplomatic talks? Zektor was confused. Since when do primitives request diplomacy? Sir, our sensors indicate that their ship is equipped with weapons we cannot identify, and their shields are operating on frequencies we have never seen before. Zektor studied the sensor data more carefully. The human ship's power signature was impossible. It was generating more energy than vessels twice its size. Its shield harmonics were shifting in patterns that would make targeting extremely difficult, and its weapons appeared to be some kind of hybrid plasma kinetic system that combined the best features of both technologies. How long did it take them to build this? He asked. Unknown, sir, but based on the construction techniques visible in the hull design, no more than a few months. A few months. The Zephyrians needed years to design and build new ship classes. The humans had gone from primitive chemical rockets to faster-than-light hybrid technology in less than a year. Grant their request, Zektor decided, but maintain full combat readiness. If they are here for revenge, we will be ready. Captain Chen transported down to Zephyr Prime with a small diplomatic team. The Zephyrian capital was everything she had expected. Crystal towers reaching toward the sky, perfectly ordered streets, and alien architecture that spoke of centuries of peaceful development. It was beautiful, it was civilized, and it was completely unprepared for war. Chen had studied the intelligence reports during the journey. Zephyr Prime had defense systems designed to stop attacking fleets, but no preparations for ground combat. The population had never experienced invasion. Their military was trained for conquest, not protection of their homeland. If humans wanted to conquer the Zephyrian capital, it would take about 3 days. But conquest was not why Chen was here. High Archon Vexthul received the human delegation. In his throne room, a vast chamber carved from a single crystal formation, he sat on a throne that had been shaped by his ancestors, surrounded by the symbols of hegemony power that had intimidated species across the galaxy. Captain Chen was not intimidated. Your Excellency, she began, speaking through a translation device that rendered her words in perfect Zephyrian. I bring greetings from the people of Earth and an offer of partnership. Partnership, Vexthul's voice echoed through the chamber. You speak of partnership after defying our rightful conquest of your world? With respect, your conquest was not rightful, Chen replied calmly. And it was not successful. Your forces learned that humans are not the primitive species you believed us to be. She activated a holographic projector that showed images from the invasion, Zephyrian warriors retreating from human cities, alien ships being destroyed by improvised weapons, and the final evacuation that had left Earth firmly in human control. "We understand that you made an honest mistake," Chen continued. "You assumed we were weak because we look weak. It is a natural error. Most species in the galaxy judge strength by physical appearance." "And what are you suggesting?" Vexthul asked, though he was beginning to suspect where this conversation was heading. "We are suggesting a new relationship between our species, one based on mutual benefit rather than conquest." Chen activated another hologram, this one showing the technical specifications of the retribution. The Zephyrian engineers in the chamber gasped when they saw the power efficiency ratings and weapons capabilities. "This ship was built using Zephyrian technology as a foundation," Chen explained. "But human engineers improved every system. We can build ships that are faster, stronger, and more efficient than anything currently in your fleet." "Impossible," General Kethmos interjected. "Our technology has been perfected over thousands of years." "Your technology is excellent," Chen agreed. "But it was designed by a species that values stability and order. Human technology is designed by a species that values adaptation and improvement. We do not perfect our designs. We constantly make them better." She brought up comparative data showing human and Zephyrian ship designs. The alien technology was elegant and refined, like a beautiful piece of art. The human modifications were crude and practical, like tools designed for hard work. But the human tools worked better. "We offer you access to this technology," Chen said. "Human engineering techniques that can improve your ships, your weapons, and your industrial systems. In exchange, we want recognition as an equal member of the galactic community." "Equal?" Vexthul was stunned. "You are a single world with a primitive industrial base. We control 12 star systems." "You controlled 12 star systems," Chen corrected gently. "Our intelligence indicates that several worlds have declared independence since news of our resistance spread. Apparently, other species are wondering if they can fight the hegemony too." The silence in the throne room was deafening. Chen had just stated what everyone knew but no one wanted to admit. The failed conquest of Earth had damaged hegemony authority throughout the galaxy. "What exactly are you proposing?" Vexthul asked carefully. "A partnership treaty. Humans will provide military support and technological innovation for the hegemony. In exchange, we want trade rights, territorial recognition, and representation in galactic governance. And if we refuse?" Chen's expression did not change, but something in her eyes grew colder. "Then you will continue trying to conquer us. We will continue defending ourselves. Our technology will continue improving. Eventually, we will become strong enough to defend other species who want independence from the hegemony." The threat was clear without being stated directly. Humans were offering to be the hegemony's partners or their enemies, but they were no longer willing to be their victims. Vexthul considered his options. The hegemony military was still powerful, but it had been weakened by the Earth invasion. Other species were watching to see how the crisis would be resolved. If he rejected the human offer and failed to reconquer Earth, the hegemony might collapse entirely. To be